Welcome to Assembly Bethesda On Air. I'm your host, Hayne Fogarty, and today, friends, we're diving into a captivating, perhaps even a bit spooky slice of history and belief, the sin eater in folk religion and the enduring themes of redemption. Now, when you hear sin eater, your mind might jump to ghosts or horror flicks, and it certainly has that vibe, but it's really about how people in the past grappled with profound concepts like sin, death, and the very real hope for a better afterlife. For the next 25 minutes, we're going to unpack the origins, the intriguing rituals, the cultural ties, and how it all connects to those bigger ideas of forgiveness and sacrifice. First off, what exactly is a sin eater? In simple terms, it's someone who performs a ritual meal to literally take on the sins of a dead person. This fascinating, if somber practice popped up mostly in Wales, parts of Scotland, Ireland, and English counties like Herefordshire and Shropshire. It dates back to at least the 1600s, with records going up to the early 1900s. Can you imagine a village funeral? The body is laid out and a poor local shows up. Bread and ale are placed on the chest or passed over the corpse. The belief was that these items absorbed the unconfessed sins, the ones that might trap the soul in purgatory. The sin eater eats the bread, drinks the ale, and boom, those sins are now theirs. They'd get a small fee, like sixpence, and the family would feel relieved. It's straightforward, yet so loaded with meaning. Now, the roots of this tradition, they run deep into what we call folk religion, that rich, complex mix of everyday beliefs and customs that often exists outside or even alongside official church doctrine. Here's the thing. Folk religion often steps in to fill the gaps where organized faith leaves questions unanswered, especially in those remote, rural areas. In these places, people masterfully blended ancient pagan ideas with burgeoning Christianity. For example, the ancient Celts had rituals involving food offerings to the dead, and you can see how that evolved into something like sin eating. What's even more interesting, there are parallels in other cultures across the globe. Think about the Aztec goddess Tlazolteotl, who was believed to eat filth to purify souls, or the use of food in death rites in ancient Greece and Egypt to absolve sins. By the time Christianity became dominant, sin-eating became a practical way to handle folks who died suddenly without confession, a real spiritual emergency. The church, as you might expect, didn't like it one bit, often labeling it heretical. But it persisted, you see, because it offered a tangible sense of comfort and closure to grieving communities. It truly offered something that the formal church couldn't always provide in that moment of raw grief and fear. Let's talk for a moment about the individuals who became sin eaters, because their stories are truly compelling and, frankly, a bit heartbreaking. They were usually the poorest of the poor, often beggars or hermits, already marginalized and shunned by society. Why? Well, after taking on all those sins, they were seen as tainted, like walking bad luck. Communities desperately needed them for funerals, but they'd avoid them otherwise, treating them as outcasts. It's an incredibly tough role, isn't it? Almost entirely sacrificial. Think about it. They were essentially volunteering to carry eternal baggage, the spiritual weight of strangers, for a meager fee. This ties straight into profound themes of redemption, doesn't it? In Christianity, redemption means being saved from sin through Jesus' ultimate sacrifice, where he takes on the world's wrongs so others can be free. The sin eater, in a very human-scale way, performed a mini version of that. It's like a folk echo of the scapegoat in Jewish tradition, where an animal would symbolically carry away the community's sins into the wilderness. Can you imagine carrying that spiritual load? It makes you wonder about the personal toll it took on these individuals. What kind of peace could they possibly find? Historical accounts, though sometimes sparse, give us fascinating glimpses into the practice of sin eating. Take John Aubrey, a renowned antiquarian who vividly described the ritual in Herefordshire in the 1680s. He recounted how the sin eater would receive bread over the corpse, a bowl of beer, and a small sum of money, then solemnly declare the deceased free from walking as ghosts. That walking bit, it really highlights the deep-seated fears of unrest, doesn't it? Fears of spirits haunting the living, perhaps even a primal fear akin to zombies or restless souls. Later, in the 1800s, folklorists painstakingly collected stories from various regions, including Wales. One particular account from the Almond Valley speaks of salt being placed on the chest with bread on top, an incantation muttered, and then the eating. By the Victorian era, interest in this quaint tradition surged, though some scholars suggest it might have been romanticized or exaggerated. However, tangible evidence points to its real practice, like the story of Richard Munslow, believed by many to be the last sin-eater in Shropshire, who died in 1906. His story, while possibly embellished by local legend, is backed up by graves and persistent local tales, underscoring that this was indeed a genuine, if controversial, part of folklife. Let's dive a little deeper into the ritual itself, because it's truly fascinating how simple items like bread and ale could carry such profound spiritual weight. Bread, of course, universally represents life and sustenance, but here it transformed into a literal sin sponge. The ale, perhaps symbolizing blood or simply acting as a chaser, completed the symbolic transfer. In some accounts, even salt was involved, possibly for purification, a common element in many ancient rituals. The sin-eater's posture during the ceremony was also significant. They often sat on a stool facing the door, eating publicly. This wasn't just a private act, it was a theatrical performance, a public spectacle designed to clearly demonstrate and reinforce the community's belief in the tangible transfer of sins. After consuming the bread and ale, the sin-eater would leave quickly, sometimes even chased or symbolically stoned, further emphasizing their newly tainted status and the community's desire for them to take the sins away. In some of the older stories, they would even mutter prayers or incantations, a unique blend of Christian and ancient pagan words, solidifying the idea that this was a bridge between the worlds, a very potent, deeply felt ritual for its time. Now, let's connect this back to redemption in broader terms. What does redemption really mean? At its heart, it's about release, isn't it? Release from guilt, from consequences, from the burden of our past mistakes. In folk religion, as we see with the sin-eater, it was hands-on. Eat the sin, problem solved. But this raises some compelling questions, doesn't it? Does simply transferring sin really work in a spiritual sense? What about personal accountability? It feels like a shortcut, almost, when you compare it to the lengthy penance or confession offered by the church. Yet, this very practice reveals how desperately people wanted assurance, a tangible sign of peace for their departed loved ones. In an era of high mortality, before antibiotics, with short and often brutal lives, death was a constant, terrifying presence. Folk rituals like sin-eating provided profound psychological relief. It offered a way, however unconventional, to redeem the unredeemable, to cleanse a soul that might otherwise be trapped. It shows the incredible human ingenuity in seeking comfort and spiritual absolution in the face of the unknown, something we can all relate to, even today. It's truly remarkable how a tradition that largely died out over a century ago continues to captivate our modern imagination. Literature and pop culture play a significant role in keeping the sin-eater alive today, constantly reinterpreting and amplifying its themes. Take Megan Campese's novel, The Sin-Eater, for example. She brilliantly reimagines the practice in a fictional England, portraying women as sin-eaters, using their unique position to uncover court secrets. Her work explores themes of silence, power, and, of course, redemption through a fascinating new lens. Then there's Francine Rivers' The Last Sin-Eater, set in Appalachia, where the ancient tradition directly confronts evangelical Christianity, emphasizing Jesus as the ultimate sin-bearer. You also see sin-eaters pop up in film and television. The Order with Heath Ledger portrays them as mystical, almost cursed fighters, while Sleepy Hollow, the TV show, features one as a tragic, burdened character. These stories consistently amplify the drama and the inherent tragedy, transforming sin-eaters into figures who willingly or unwillingly carry immense burdens for others. They powerfully highlight the cost of redemption, reminding us that one person's freedom often comes at the expense of another's chains, whether real or metaphorical. So, how did such a deeply rooted practice eventually fade away? Modernization, my friends, played a significant role. Better roads meant priests could finally reach those remote areas, offering official sacraments. Education spread, gradually chipping away at what was often labeled as superstition. The Industrial Revolution pulled people from insular villages to bustling cities, severing the ties that bound these ancient traditions. By 1900, Sin Eater was a rare sight, a relic of a bygone era. Yet its core themes endure. Today, while we don't have sin eaters, we still seek redemption, perhaps through therapy, heartfelt apologies, or even social media events. The fundamental human need to offload guilt and find peace remains as strong as ever. And it's not just in the British Isles. When Welsh and Scottish folks emigrated to America, especially to places like Appalachia, bits of this tradition traveled with them. Stories there sometimes talk of sin eaters adapted to new lands, showing how folklore constantly evolves, carrying these profound ideas of redemption across oceans. It's a testament to the enduring human spirit, always seeking solace and meaning. Wrapping up our discussion today, the Sin Eater embodies the sheer ingenuity of folk religion in confronting death and sin, those universal human experiences. It's a powerful testament to human creativity in the relentless pursuit of redemption, brilliantly blending old pagan beliefs with nascent Christianity. Whether we categorize it as pure historical fact or amplified folklore, this tradition challenges us to consider how we handle our own burdens, our own guilt, and our desire for peace. In theological terms, sin eaters imperfectly parallel Christ. Jesus' sacrifice is voluntary, eternal, and for all, while sin eaters were paid, temporary, and for one. This highlights both the limits of folk religion and its immense appeal in desperate times. And let's not forget gender roles. While most accounts depict male sin eaters, some folklore includes women, adding layers of marginalization where redemption intersects with social status. As we near the end, remember, folk religion like this reminds us that beliefs are incredibly fluid, constantly shaped by human need. The Sin Eater's story, at its core, is one of sacrifice for the collective good, a raw, poignant take on redemption. Thank you for joining me today. As always, it is a pleasure to spend this time with you. God bless, and until next time, courage. Head on over to assemblybethesda.com for more Gothic Christian blog content and my shop, where all digital products are on a pay-as-you-are-led basis. If you can't afford to help, that's perfectly okay. Just put 0 in my price field. My goal is to bring you quality Christian Gothic content. There you will find devotionals, Gothic Christian music, and much more. Thank you again.